Good afternoon. We're so happy to have you with us today for our monthly Seymour Scoop. Every month, we join together with a research office on campus, and we have an opportunity to sit down and learn more about some of the amazing resources that are available to students as well as families. So today, I am honored to have with me Ms. Nichol Green, who serves as the Associate Registrar for the Office of the Registrar. And she's taking out some time with us to talk a little bit more about the Office of the Registrar, its functionalities, the resources available to students, and how families can utilize these resources and also help us engage with students and helping them understand the resources that are available to them right here on campus. So Ms. Nichol, I will start with just the beginning. What is the Office of the Registrar?
Hey, thanks for having me, Ashley. I'm really excited to be here just to kind of highlight our office today. So the Office of the Registrar, we really act in a supportive role for the university as well as our community at large. So we maintain all of our academic policies and the integrity of all of those policies, as well as just ensuring the privacy of the data, security, and student records that come through the university. And we do that from the time a student enrolls at the university, all the through degree conferral and then into perpetuity, because obviously when a student completes at the university, they still require some of our services. So we're kind of here for the long haul for everyone.
Absolutely. And we love that. And that's one thing that our offices have in common is that we begin working with students when they first get to campus as freshman students. And our goal is to help them throughout the continuation of their journey on campus until graduation. And so that's programming for all students. And you guys are the same. You work with students up until graduation. And as you mentioned, beyond that point. So you do a lot. And I know that one of the things that you do and that you work very closely with and you oversee is one of the things that students use probably daily, and that's SOAR. And I know that families have heard SOAR, families that have gone through orientations have heard that, they've learned a little bit about it, and maybe we can learn a little bit more. So if you can explain to us, what is SOAR? We know that we soar to the top, but what is the system SOAR?
Sure. So SOAR is an acronym actually, and it stands for Southern's Online Accessible Records. So this is our student information system, and it serves many functions throughout our university. It's not only used by students, it is used by faculty, staff, our students, as well as parents. And so we'll talk a little bit about that more later, I know, but basically, it's our student information system that's used for data collection and storage. So students use SOAR to gain access to class schedules, grades, transcripts, degree progress, enrollment verification, make payments, check out their financial aid status, basically anything at the university that relates to them as a student. Additionally, faculty and advisors use SOAR to keep advising notes on students. For degree progression, they can email their advisees and communicate through SOAR, enter grades for classes, see their class rosters, just different things like that. And then from a staff perspective, we use SOAR to create the things that are seen and used by students and faculty. So those class schedules, entering the student information and making sure that their profile and their information is accurate, assisting students through the various processes that they may complete daily, checking for that degree progression, and just establishing all of the rules and the parameters behind what actually make the system function for those users.
Wonderful. And I know that part of the accessibility of SOAR is great. And I know that you mentioned that while it has many functions, one of which is grading. And so students are able to see their grades, are able to see their final grades as well as interim grades. And at some point in the semester, students may see an NA. So if a student says that they have received an NA grade, what does that mean?
So primarily the NA grades are entered at the very beginning of a term or a session. For classes, there's a window of time during our first few days of classes where students can add or drop a class without financial or academic penalty. And so one of the things that we do at the institution is we produce a roster for faculty to enter specifically NA grades. And NA simply stands for not attending. This is a grade that does not impact the student's GPA. It doesn't impact financial aid. It doesn't have any impact on the student, but it basically just helps us as staff gauge whether or not a student is in attendance. And so some of the things that we look for, if students have multiple NA grades, or if maybe they only have one, but we're just checking to determine if a student is truly present and attending classes so that we can perform appropriate outreach to those students who may not be here. And that helps us kind of with charges and fees and balances and things. We don't want students to be erroneously charged for something that they may not be attending or may not be here. And so it's really beneficial for us when a student has an accurate report of not attending, and that way we can better assist them. These are not official grades, so they do not go on a student's permanent record. It really is just to help us as staff members.
Absolutely. And I know that you mentioned there's a certain window that students have to drop class. And so speaking on the lines of dropping a class, how does a student go about dropping that class? And then how many hours on the flip side are considered as full-time for students?
Okay. So once again, we kind of roll back over to SOAR, where students actually perform actions and take actions on their class schedules. So students can drop classes through their SOAR accounts. Our academic calendar, which is linked on our registrar homepage, that's usm.edu/registrar, has all of the appropriate add and drop dates for sessions and for terms in order for those students to avoid those financial and academic penalties. But let's just say a student misses a deadline and they are, it's 3 weeks into school and they've decided they need to drop a class, and they can go through their SOAR account and actually request permission to drop that course with a W grade. And so what that does is it sends an email to their instructor and lets the instructor know reasons, and they can include more information there just to say, like, hey, I really need to drop this class because in the long run it may not be beneficial for me to stay in this class, and I can attempt it at a different time. And so then it'll go through the instructor and the director of the school for them to make decisions, and then we can drop it here in the registrar's office for them, and that issues a W grade. And so, that's beneficial for students who might be caught in situations where they don't want to receive a grade that would have academic penalty for them and financial aid penalty for them, and they can take that W. The second part of your question for full-time status, undergraduate students are considered full-time status anything from 12 to 19 hours. And then, graduate full-time enrollment is generally 9 to 13 hours, but this really varies based on where that student is falling in their degree progression. So sometimes our graduate students have a little bit lower threshold in order to be considered full-time, but undergraduate students are 12 to 19 hours.
For that. So when do students meet with their academic advisor to schedule classes for the next semester, and what does that process look like?
So this is a really fun and exciting question for me because I just enjoy the excitement that surrounds registration. So we're actually in this period currently. Advisement and registration is exciting. Students are approaching the finish line or just getting closer and closer to that goal and that degree progression. So To enroll for spring, students have advisement and registration in October. And then to enroll for summer and fall, that usually occurs in March. So students are assigned an advisor through the school of their major. And then that advisor assignment is visible to the student through their SOAR account. We're going back to the SOAR account. So oftentimes the advisors will contact the students to set up those appointments and say, hey, you know, it's time to come in and get advised because registration is about to occur. But students can also definitely take the initiative and be proactive and reach out to those advisors. The information they see in SOAR does give the student the advisor's email address as well as phone number, so they can contact them. One thing that we encourage is students have access to their degree progress report, which we kind of have another acronym for, which is the DPR, and the planner through their SOAR account. So it's a really good idea for them to just be familiar with the requirements for their degree, kind of check off what they've already completed and what might be next on their list for progression. And all of these tools, the DPR, the planner, you know, anything that is related to degree progression and advisement is all available in SOAR. And believe it or not, a student can actually sit down and map out their entire career all the way through to degree completion and put their classes into blocks and what, you know, when they want to take them and when they want to take them each term. And so that's helpful before you meet with your advisor. That way, you know, you're not just kind of sitting in a session where the advisor's planning it for you. It's great to take a proactive stance towards that degree progression and map all that out. So we're in that period right now. So students should be getting advised and pre-registered for spring currently.
Wonderful. Thank you for mentioning that. I'm aware of the system, but did not know just how detailed and how much access and ability students have to plan that far out. And so the planner in me, that makes me excited, just like the registration. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds exciting to be able to plan that far out in advance. I love things like that. So families certainly, you know, have those conversations with students to encourage them to make those appointments with their advisors. Just like, you know, if you have a freshman student, we know in the summer those things were done with them, for them, at summer orientations, but now those students are needing to be a little bit more proactive. And if they've not heard from their advisor from their department, for them to reach out to their academic advisor. That information is available in SOAR, as Ms. Green mentioned, and make those appointments and go ahead and create a plan of the courses that they're interested in and taking that as a part of their DPR to stay on track to graduating.
Yes.
And we know that all the time, you know, there are students that, you know, find that their interests change, their passions change a little bit, and they decide that they want to change their major. So what is the process to change a major, or maybe they want to add a minor? How do students go about that process?
Sure. So I think changing your major is like a requirement of being a college student, maybe, because I definitely did this as well. I think it's
So did I.
completely normal. So recently we have actually added the process of changing your major or adding a minor to SOAR. This used to be a very antiquated, like paper process where you had to walk around to get signatures, but we are working in our office very hard to create processes that flow seamlessly through technology. And so, of course, everyone is looking on the computer for information and for ways to do things. And so we're doing that as well in our office. So a student can log into their SOAR account and they have the option to change their majors, add minors, their different processes. And then that kicks off through a workflow process where we actually have our advisors and other school personnel that review those requests and make sure that students meet requirements. Some of our programs have GPA requirements or prerequisite requirements or things like that. So they'll just make sure that the student meets the requirements to actually make the switch. And the students are kept updated throughout the process. via their student USM email account. So often it's a good idea for the student to meet with their current advisor and maybe discuss what this process looks like before they submit the official request through SOAR. Another thing that we have is called a what if report. So you can actually sit down with an advisor and say, what would happen if I changed my major from accounting to math, for example? And so the advisor can actually create a report that will take your completed coursework in your current major of accounting, let's just say, and see how those completed courses would fit into a math major. And so that will show you, like, here's how much coursework you've completed if you switch to math, and maybe here's what you have left for degree completion. And so you can figure out, it's a what if report. You can look at all the different kind of scenarios and just kind of talk about how much work you might have left if you were to switch your major or add a minor.
That is phenomenal. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I've known about that, but that is so helpful. I'm going to be using that. I meet with students. We have a success in our office, and so it gives us an opportunity to sit down with students and meet with them to coach them, to help them be successful. And sometimes this topic of changing a major comes up. And so that's something that I'm definitely going to utilize, and letting them know about that opportunity before they make the official switch. I love it.
We like for them to do a little bit of career exploration through our career center, and maybe look at some aptitude tests or things that might interest them. And then that way they can actually speak with someone and develop these what if scenarios before changing their major. And that way they're not stuck in a cycle of multiple changes.
Right.
They may feel a little more certain about their decision.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know that earlier in our discussion, we chatted about midterms and interim grades, and being now the time for advisement, which typically happens at the interim of the semester. So we're in that time. So if you can talk with us a little bit about what are interim grades and where and when will they be posted?
Okay, sure. So our interim grades, also you may have heard it referred to previously as midterm grades. It's the same thing. Generally, we submit these around the 6th week of the term for all of our full term courses. So anything that runs the full length of the semester, August to December in the fall, or January to May in the spring, those are given interim grades. So these grades basically just give students and advisors a good idea of how you might be performing in a class. It's your grade up until that point, that 6-week point. Often this helps with advisement and pre-registration, because students can know if they can move on to that next course based on these grades. Like, there's English 101, which is the progression is English 102. So am I performing well enough in English 101 to feel confident that I can register for English 102 for the spring? Yes or no? Kind of gives them that. It's not always a clear indicator of how a student might persist in a course. There's always variables, but it is a good barometer for academic performance up to that point in the class. These grades are visible on the student's SOAR account as soon as the instructor enters the grade. And it's also, this is kind of like the NA grade. This is not an official grade. It does not go on their transcript or official record in any way. It is just a barometer for academic performance to that point. We actually started submission of interim grades on Monday this past week. So this week, instructors have been entering those. So students should be able to see those on their SOAR accounts at this time, depending on instructor entry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we do know that certain times, there's a situation that may arise in a student or their family, and they are unfortunately needing to withdraw from the university. we hate to see students go, but we do know certain times those circumstances arise when that has to happen. If that needs to happen, what is the process for a student to withdraw from the university?
So I want to first start on this question by saying that withdrawal from the university and a withdrawal or drop from a course are different. So students a lot of times don't understand the distinction. So you can drop a single course, which gives you a W grade for that course. But in this particular instance where you're talking about a withdrawal, that means you're dropping all of your courses. You are no longer intending to be enrolled at Southern Miss for that term. And so this process is also in SOAR. There's a very clear link for students that directs them to, I'm going to use quotes here. It actually says withdraw, drop all classes, because we want them to know that that is the action that they're taking is dropping all of their classes, not just a single course. And through this process, there's just a really short questionnaire that the student completes, and that request goes through a very similar workflow process where the advisor, the school director, and the dean are notified of the request, and they can see the students' comments. Oftentimes we like to, the reason it goes through workflow is we like to read the comments, we like to review, and then reach out to the student, because if there's anything we can do to assist them so that they can remain enrolled and we can retain that enrollment, then we want to help them. We want to see them succeed. So we'll make sure, that's why it goes, a lot of students ask us, I don't understand why all these people have to approve this. Mm-hmm. And really it's just, we're trying to see if there's anything that we can do to assist you so that you don't have to withdraw and take those, W grades. We want to help them. So, but yeah, it's a really simple process for students to go through. And if they were to complete that, then they likely would hear from a representative from their major, just to kind of see if there was anything we could do to help them.
Thank you. So let's switch gears a little bit here and discuss a little bit about families and parents and their access. So let's say a student is, contemplating withdrawing from university, or if grades have now been posted and we have a family that's wanting to gain access to that information, to that knowledge. And we, in our office, we are a little bit more familiar, but I want all of our families to know about this process as well. And that's FERPA. And what is FERPA? When we hear the term, what does it stand for? And what does that mean in regards to Southern Miss families?
So FERPA is really our guiding principle in the registrar's office. Often it's difficult to discuss this topic because the person who is hearing it for the first time and doesn't understand. But FERPA is actually a federal regulation. It's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And this federal regulation protects the privacy of student records and applies to schools, any school that receives federal funding. So students who are enrolled in post-secondary education, universities, at that point of enrollment, 18 years old or at that point of enrollment, their rights are transferred to them, and then they have the authority to determine who has access to those records. And it gives the students, FERPA also gives the students the right to view and amend their records, which is why we have appeal processes and just different things like that. So it basically is just transferring the responsibility for the record and the data to the student. What this means for us as employees and for parents and families is that we aren't allowed to release information about the student's record to anyone unless that student has given us express written permission to do so. So there is information that's considered directory information. Those things are like names, address, phone numbers, dates of attendance, honors, whether or not they received a degree, those kinds of things. Directory information we can release without student consent. But when it comes to grades, class schedules, student balances, academic standings, transcripts, all of those types of things, all of that actually has to have student consent for us to be able to release that information. Students, and we're going to get to that parent portal piece, but the student has the rights to those permissions. On a little bit of the flip side, we go back to that directory information piece, and we can release those things without the student consent. However, the student does have a right to request that that not be disclosed. And so they can go through our office, the registrar's office, to say, hey, you know, I really don't want my directory information disclosed. And we can put a special little FERPA indicator on their file where we don't release that information.
And I know that you mentioned the parent portal, and we talked about it earlier in the regards to everyone being able to utilize SOAR, being not just students, but also faculty, staff, and of course families, and then mentioning about FERPA and their potential of having access through parent portal through certain documentation. So if you will talk with us now about the parent portal, and I hope that families have heard about it. If not, listen up. This is really important information that you will certainly find useful. But what is the parent portal? How do families gain access to it, and what do they receive from having that access?
Okay, so the parent portal is a means by which the student can grant access to certain functions of SOAR to a third party. So that can be a parent, a spouse, a guardian, a grandparent, anyone that the student deems to be their account holder, basically. So what happens is the student logs into SOAR and they have the access to set up, let's just say that I'm a student and Ashley, I want to give you permission. So I'm gonna log in and I'm gonna say, okay, Ashley has permission to view some things on my account, and it is based on your email address. So I would need your email address to set that up and your name. And then once that's done, the system is going to generate some emails to your email account, Ashley, as the parent, to let you know, hey, here's your username. And then it's going to send you another one that says, here's your password. So basically what we're doing is we are giving that third party viewer access to SOAR. So you have your own login and you have your own password, and you're logging into SOAR just like a student was or does. The key part of this, though, is that the student can choose what information you can see. So the student has a list, a huge list of information: grades, academic standing, financial, class schedule, etc. And so the student can go there and select what they might want their viewer to have access to. So I might want, Ashley, I might want you to be able to pay my bills so you can see all my financial information, but Ashley, you can't see my grades. So I'm not going to check that box because I don't want you to have access to that. So it really just depends and varies based on the student as the user. They can grant as much or as little access as they would like that person to have. And then the parent just logs into SOAR just like the student would, and they're able to see the information that's there. The student does have the ability to grant or revoke access at any time, and then also is able to assist the parent with like password changes or different things like that they may need to go through. So it gives them some access, and it just allows them to take part in that parent part in that SOAR experience.
When a student logs into SOAR, where do they go to give the access? Is it Navigator? What's the process of getting there?
So we've recently actually updated SOAR. And so when a student logs in, they'll click on the tile to go to their student dashboard. And then they'll have some links on the left-hand side. Everything's a left navigation currently. And so there's a very clear link there that students can use to set that up. It's very easy to add the account. It takes, not even 5 minutes. As long as you know the person that you're delegating the access to, as long as you have their email address and their name, it's a very easy and simple process.
Great, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you will wrap us up today with just letting us know where you're located on campus. Students, if they have questions, who should they contact? How should they make an appointment? And what's your contact information?
So we actually are located in Kennard, Washington Hall on the first floor. So we're in the same building as admissions and financial aid and a lot of the other student services offices that students need. We don't normally operate by appointment. We take walk-in traffic. Our office consists of about 18 staff. And so students can walk in at any time and ask to see someone or meet with someone. If you're wanting to have more of a one-on-one meeting, all of our lead staff are listed on our webpage. That's usm.edu/registrar, and you can see the names of those people there and their different areas of responsibilities. We also have a listserv that we actually receive a lot of communication through our listserv and are able to assist many students that way. All you have to do is email registrar@usm.edu, and that's REGISTRAR, registrar@usm.edu, and we'll be able to help you that way. So, but we're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and anyone can walk in at any time to request assistance with whatever it is they might need.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Green, for just chatting with us today and giving us a ton of information on the Office of the Registrar, SOAR, its many functionalities, FERPA, the parent portal, and how students can take access. It's a lot. There's a lot of services that you provide, and we're very grateful for that. We do families have enjoyed this, and certainly reach out to the Office of the Registrar if you think of a question after today's live video. Feel free to reach out and get the assistance that you need. That they're certainly there to do so. They're very friendly people. I've used them many times as an undergraduate and as a staff on campus. So I want to end our live session today with just wishing all of our Southern Miss parents and families a happy Parent and Family Appreciation Week. If you did not know, here on campus, we are celebrating all of our Southern Miss families with a Parent and Family Appreciation Week. This past Sunday was National Family Day. And if you're on any social media, especially Facebook, you probably have seen that there was National Daughters Day recently. Today was National Sons Day, and it is Parent and Family Appreciation Week. So all week long, Southern Miss students are having the opportunity to celebrate you guys, and they're doing that in a number of ways every day this week. And so we still have Wednesday, Thursday and Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have been meeting with students in the Thad Cochran Center, which houses our main dining hall, the Fresh Food Company. We have a table that's set up right outside. And so students have had the opportunity to write postcards home. And so you will probably be receiving a fun little postcard in the mail. Students are able to stop by, write a postcard home to a family member, and we have the postage on us. So it's a fun, free opportunity for students just to say a quick little cute word of thanks to all of our family members. If you are following us here on Facebook, as we see that you probably are, and on Instagram, we are also giving shout outs to family members. Some students have taken advantage of the opportunity to submit an online submission with pictures. And so we are sharing some of those pictures and verbiage from students who are wanting to say thank you on our social media accounts. And then we are also giving away prizes. Who doesn't love a wonderful prize? So we've got some Southern Miss family prizes that we're giving away, and those winners will be announced on Friday. So several of our parent and family followers, so if you're following us on Facebook and Instagram, you're already entered into the opportunity to win one of those prizes. And we just want to once again show you that We appreciate you and the support that you provide to your student. We know that we cannot do it on our own. Your heart is here with us at Southern Miss, and we're just grateful that you're partnering with us to help your students succeed and beyond as a Golden Eagle. As always, if you have any questions, please certainly reach out to us. The Parent and Family Programs, we're located in the Center for Student Success, which is in Cook Library on the first floor. You can reach us at our email, which is parentsandfamily@usm.edu. And that's parents with an S, parents and family at usm.edu. And then you can also reach us by phone. And our phone number is 601-266-6405. We do hope that you are a member of our Parent and Family Association. It's a free membership, and every month all of our members receive a monthly e-newsletter, and that e-newsletter will be going out soon for the month of October. So if you are not a member, go ahead and navigate over to our website right now, and that's usm.edu/success. And once you're there, you'll navigate to the Parent and Family section. Then you'll see Parent and Family Association, and you can sign up for free today. And we'll get you on that listserv to begin receiving our monthly e-newsletters. Again, thank you for joining us for our September Seymour Scoop. We're going to have an October one, and we will learn more about that in our October newsletter. Thank you again for joining us, Miss Nichol Green, and we appreciate you. And as always, on campus, as we say, Southern Miss
To the top.
y'all have a great day.